Hey everybody, this Much Roundup is brought to you by Primal the Awakening. And folks, oh my goodness, Primal has been sponsoring the show for a couple of months now, and I've already shown you so much. I have opened up in previous episodes the big box. There's so much content in here. Plus, I've already shown you 4 of the expansions: Mount Havoc, Ice, Feather, and Venom. And yet, there's still more, folks. So, before we get to the rundown for the month, I am going to let you know about all of these extra bits because, oh my goodness, for some folks, I may have saved the best for last. So I'm going ahead and bring out the camera, and we're going to give you a quick tour. So, switch over to the overhead view, and let's open up the Nightmare expansion, shall we? There's going to be more bosses in here. Although, first of all, let's set the stage. If you had the strength, not of one, but of all the monsters of Thyrea, you could put it into this Nightmare for mankind, which is certainly an appropriate setting for this, because the Nightmare expansion adds a few things. First of all, unlike the previous bosses, there are 4 bosses in this box instead of 2, like all the other expansions. And yet it only costs, I think, $10 more than the other expansions. So if you're only going to get one additional boss expansion box, it should probably be this one, because you get 4 bosses instead of 2. And you also unlock the Nightmare mode. For really awesome top-level players, they can actually add Nightmare difficulties for about half of all the monsters in the game by throwing additional behavior cards into their decks. And if it wasn't already challenging enough, it can go over the limit. And of course, like all the other bosses, you get standalone expansions, so you can just jump right into fighting them, or you can work the quest cards that come in here into your main quest, so it can just become part of your ongoing campaign as you play through the game. That's one of the things about Primal. You can just play them as standalone games or part of a big epic campaign. There's new functionality, like one of the bosses shoots fire or lava, and will set the world on fire. What have you got? Oh, bleeding. This is a new type of wound that actually makes the monster stronger. At the same time, it makes you weaker. There's one of the interesting things is one of the bosses comes in 2 different formats and does this whole phasing element. And so there's a bunch of cool new ideas here, but that's the gameplay. You want to see the plastic, don't you? Well, we've got 2 different variants of Zeketh or Zekalith. So that is 2 of the 4 bosses. You've got Taraska, you've got Zithros, you've got a new Nightmare campaign additional buck for the Nightmare Unleashed. We've got tons of cards, of course, like always, and some new tokens, but the most important thing is the bosses. And you say, wait, there's only 3 here. Or remember, this one has 2 different modes, and so you can fight it, and the different modes you play this in give it completely different sets of behavior cards and peril cards and all of that stuff. But let's go on ahead and get them a bit closer so you can see, as usual, all the gorgeous detail. So there's 3 boss minis, but functionally 4 bosses in this box, so which is why if I were only going to get one, this would probably be the one I'd go for. Let's see, what else have we got? Some nice T-Rex action going on. Certainly seems like a nice addition. All right, very scary. And what's the other one? Oh, very spiky. Do be careful. These are literally sharp spikes on this one. So that's the 4th Nightmare box, or the 4th boss box, Nightmares. But we've got more, folks. We've got, come on, focus. Why won't you focus? All right, camera. You've got Primal the Awakening, the terrain box. So for a lot of people, this is a must-have, because I've shown you when I've opened other boxes, the terrain is just, that represents different things like, poisonous plants and big rocks that you can climb up on and then, bravely jump off and jump onto the backs of the monsters, or, rocks that you can literally hide behind, but the monsters smash into them and destroy them. Before, they were just represented by, cardboard chits, now you can actually have real miniatures representing. Now these represent most of the stuff that comes in the main box. There's no miniature for water or sand or fire, and there also aren't miniatures for some of the terrains that came in the other expansions like ice and whatnot. But still, this really elevates the experience quite a bit. Honestly, when I first thought I was going to open this, I really wouldn't care that much, but setting up the game and playing with these is so much more engaging than just playing with cardboard chits to say what's going on. That's not all. There is the Tome of Creatures available for people who just love art. And so what have you got here? Well, you've got some, story, narrative, world setting of the world, but mostly you've just got big, beautiful pictures of all the different monsters of the game. So that's kind of nice. And again, just a little bit more background. And, a coffee table book, I suppose. So this Tome of Creatures is available. But for some people, this is the most important one. This is the box of sleeves. So many sleeves. This lets you sleeve everything if you've got all the expansions. And there's a lot of sleeves, as you might imagine. It's a big old box. It's also a one-stop storage, so you can put all the cards for all the expansions in one place and get them out easily instead of digging through lots of different expansion boxes. But, the standard, the large, and the small are all going to be taken care of for the sleevers out there. I'm not one of them, but I know there are them out there. And also, it's a nice place to put the two-sided player mat. Of course, the game comes with a perfectly nice looking board, fold-out board, but I'll admit this player mat looks so much more bright and vibrant, even though it's dark and scary. So this is nice to have too. So that's it, folks. I believe I have now taken you on a guided tour of everything that Primal The Awakening has to offer. Oh my goodness, there was so much stuff. There we go. Yeah. And like I said, you can still pre-order this right now. There you go to Reggie. Again, the link's down on the bottom of the show notes. But man, there's so much. Also, not for nothing, there's also a link down in the show notes for the run-throughs and the R&R show where I unboxed everything else. Also, link down in the show notes so you can watch my original run-through I did for Primal The Awakening back in 2021. Very, very cool game. That should really give you an idea of what the gameplay is like as well. So, I think, folks, that's it. Phew! Thank you, Reggie Games, for sponsoring the show for all these months. But now, without further ado, it's time to let you know about all the games Jen and I played in the month of September 2021. I'm sorry, 2024. Right, 14 games I think I'm going to be talking about today. As always, I'm going to be doing it in a countdown format, starting with my least favorite, ending with my most favorite, my new game of the month. Although, I always want to make clear, none of these games are bad. Even if it's my least favorite, well, I'll tell you why. But if these were actively bad games, I simply wouldn't put them on the list, because life is too short to worry about games that don't work very well. I'm here to tell you about the games I've played that are really, really cool in various and sundry ways. So, let's get to it. I'm going to queue up? I think I am. So let us open up with number 14 on the list, Keyframes. Now, this is a new card game, fast little filler game from Isra and Shay, the design couple behind The White Castle, Red Cathedral, and a bunch of other great games besides Flatiron I just talked about last month. This is this is unlike what they've done before. Very small, just basically a deck of cards where we are all animators trying to work on a perfect animation sequence. And so what happens is you've got a handful of cards in your hand. You're going to pick one of them, and everybody reveals at the same time. Each card has, the animation you're working on, but it also has an initiative speed. And whoever has the best speed is going to then throw that card into the collection up on the main board, and then pick one and add it to one of their own animation sequences. And the more you can fill out the animation sequence, the more points you get. But you are potentially having to give up that card that is going to let you Let me go on ahead and rewind. This is the rules are so simple. I'm just using Publisher Combo Games video. I need to shorten this even. So, right, let's slow down to like 50 so it stays on the screen a little bit more. So anyway, so everybody reveals, finds out what their speed is going to be, and then that determines what order you're going to draft the cards. And those cards include the cards that everybody is using for their initiative. So you end up grabbing the card, adding it to one of 2 animation sequences you're going to be developing at any given time. And the important thing is, once you've grabbed a card, it's locked in place. But you've got to get all the correct frames of the animation, whether it's 2, 3, or 4 animations, and they have to be played out correctly from left to right. And so you've got to be careful about leaving blank spaces. But one thing you can do is, you can grab wilds that can slip into any slot and get you out of trouble if you can't grab the right frames you need. Here's the trick, though. If you use one of those wild cards, it can help ensure that you do the complete animation. But if you do the complete animation with one of the wilds, you will lose some points. But you'll still do a pretty good job of scoring points. If, however, you never get a chance to finish your 4 frames, A, B, C, D animations when you use the wild, then you score nothing for it. And all the work you put into it is lost. And that is incredibly painful. And so this game is full of really agonizing decisions because you're trying, okay, am I okay going slow? None of the cards out there are ones I want. I probably want to go slow, and hopefully somebody else will go quicker than me and throw a card in that I really do want. But you can see around the table what cards everybody wants, because everybody can see what animation sequences everybody is working on. And so kind of like Lost Cities, I'm very nervous about throwing a card out that might help you, but sometimes I need to do it because I needed to play fast to get the card that was really important for me. Or at the same token, I might need to play fast to take the card that you wanted, because it'll score you some huge 15 points. And heck, I might never even play it, but I'm just taking it to make sure you don't have. And that was the crux of what we didn't like about the game. Jen and I found we played as a 2 and a 3 player game. This can be very cutthroat if you're playing that way, because sometimes, you know what, none of those cards are good for me. The one I'm going to play isn't good for me. The one I'm looking for hasn't shown up yet. So probably the best thing to do is prevent you from getting what you want. Even if it means I only might score just a single card and not get much out of it, better than letting you score 15 points. And so, if you see something that's out there, everybody knows how much you want it. Everybody knows how many points you're going to score off it. So it's really important to play smart and use the cards that are either faster or slower depending on the situation. Medium speed if there's multiple cards you might want to grab. So, that's the crux of it. It's very fast. It's a lovely looking little game. When you actually get all the animations, you get the 4 frames, that's kind of, it's a nice theme. It's a nice presentation. And if you are looking for a fast-playing filler drafting game that has a lot of interaction, you might want to check out Keyframes. Comes in number 14 at the bottom of our list because Jen and I found it was too cutthroat for our taste. But if you like that kind of thing, then you're probably going to dig number 14 of the month, Keyframes. Okay. Now, let's move on to number 13 of the month, Asian Tigers. And this is a new game from design team up Nuno Santiero and Paulo Soledad. These two are known for their big, heavy, crunchy Euros. We haven't seen them for a while. It's great to see them back. Gosh, some of their old stuff from What's Your Game. Now that What's Your Game is gone, they're working with new publishers like Pythagoras here. And this is a very heavy, crunchy. This might be the heaviest game we played this month. Looking ahead, I think this was the heaviest game we played in the month of September, and it is a big, robust business simulation where it's the 1950s and we are investors trying to help the development of the 4 tigers, South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, and Hong Kong, as they are starting to build up their industrial base and will ultimately become the powerhouses we know of them today. So this goes back in time and charts those early days of them rising to prominence. Now, I've not done a video for it. I don't think there's a couple of unboxing videos. That's not really going to help, so I'll just go to pictures. Let's go show some pictures. There we go. Here is the main board, and I should say It is not the coolest looking game. It is very austere. It is very much what it should be. This is an industrial simulation set in the 50s, so that's what it looks like. It looks like, a big control board at some industrial factory in one of the Asian tigers in the 50s. It's clean, it's easy to read, but it is not the prettiest game out there. There is no Vincent Dutrait or Miko art here, unfortunately. But that's okay, because there, as you can just see from this picture, there's so much going on. Clarity is a virtue. How does it work, though? Well, everybody, as part of setup, has 10 workers, and you're going to be able to, on your turn, send one of your workers to any of the 4 regions, the 4 tigers, or to the center part of the main board, which is the global market. And what we're trying to do is, in each of the 4 different regions, we have $6, 6 investment to spend. And if you don't spend it all, you will lose it. So you better find ways to split your time between all 4 regions to make ideal investments everywhere. This is not a game about focusing just on one thing, but trying to diversify as much as possible. It's a big part of it. But anyway, the trick is, let me see if I can show a player board here. There we go. Here's a player board. The 10 workers you've got come in 3 colors, black, white, and gray. And they get shuffled up. So you're going to activate them from left to right. First, in this case, this player is going to activate a black one, then another black one, then a white one, then a black one, then a gray one. And you'll notice this player only has 3 white ones, but they've got 4 black ones. And so black is a stronger color for them this round. White is a weaker color for them. But what difference does the color make? Well, imagine it's my turn. I'm going to grab my leftmost one. I'm going to grab a black worker because that's my first one queued up, and I'm going to send it somewhere out to the board. Now, as part of setup for the round, the cheapest district to get into for South Korea over here has already been randomly seeded with black. So that means I could send my black worker to the C sector of South Korea, which is the cheapest to get in. It only costs me 1 of my investment. But if I want to get into the B sector, where there are bigger rewards, I can start building universities and stuff like that, then I got to pay 2. And the thing is, I can't send my black worker here. I have to send my gray or my white. And once I send my gray or my white, which remember, I don't have access to my grays or whites yet. I'm not going to see them for a while. But if somebody else comes here and sends a white here, that means I can only come to the B sector with one of my white workers, which means by process of elimination, if you want to go to the most lucrative, the A sector, which costs you 3 of your 6 to get in, then you're going to have to use the other one, the gray. And so this game is a worker placement where there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 worker placement spots. But over time, players are going to program through their choices what types of workers can go where. And as the round goes on and more things get set in stone like that, you really start having to reckon with, right, okay, I need to use, you've made that a gray. That's the action I need to do. Oh, my phone is on for some reason. There we go, turn it off. But I'm not going to get to my gray workers until halfway through this round. So you've cut me off from what I need to do in South Korea or Taiwan or whatever. So am I even going to go for that? Or am I going to try to go someplace else? When I eventually get to this gray halfway through the round, am I even still going to want to go to the A sector of Taiwan? Or am I going to say, no, you know what? I'm going to use that and I'm going to go and try to sell some of the goods I've generated from South Korea. I'm going to sell them to the Australians and the Americans by sending it over to the world market. This is the crux of the game, and it's really compelling. It's a very fun and interesting new twist on worker placement. Haven't seen anything quite like it, where players are programming the function of your 3 type of workers throughout. And halfway through the game, we're going to reset everything and set up the board and go through it a second time. So it is really important because a lot of times, this is one of those games where players can really build off what other players do. If somebody came here and built a power plant so they can generate some energy, you need energy to be able to build the factories to generate the goods that we want to sell in the international market. If somebody came here and built a power plant, that means suddenly, it is cheaper to build the automotive and the tools factory here because there's a discount. So if somebody else does this, hey, I want to be the first to rush up here and build my factory because I can do it cheaper thanks to the work you did. But do I have access to my black worker? Somebody who's about to do this, they might want to get the discount. And so what they do is they wait. They wait until they see that, okay, nobody else has any black workers queued up. So they know, and they've got 2 black workers queued up because of the way it worked out. They'll send their first black worker out here, build the factory build the power plant to make the discount available. Then they look around the board and nobody else could send a black worker there. So when it comes around to their next turn, oh good, now they can get the discount that they set up for themselves. There's all kinds of setup and payoff combinations, like setting up a university that then lets you build in adjacent areas, all kinds of things like that. Here's the trick though. Let's say in the B sector, it's allowing white workers, right? And so somebody used their black worker, came up, and they know in their next turn they're going to use another black worker to then build with a discount. Somebody next, though, might say, you know what? I'm going to use my white worker to go to the B sector, not to build a laboratory or a factory or a power plant or a university in the B sector, because if you pay 2 to go into the B sector, you can go to the B or the C. So you can overpay. So there is still a risk that you can get frozen out of what it is you want to do. So there's never any guarantees, and there's always ways to get around the restrictions of these workers. And again, that's the crux of the game that makes it so fascinating and such a really interesting new take on worker placement. Now, that's not all. That's half of what makes this game interesting. The other half, let me come back over here to the player board. You will notice, hey, this is my queue of workers, and I've told you why paying attention to your queue of workers is so important. But whenever I build something, whether it's a factory or a university or a power plant or a laboratory, I mark that on the main board by taking one of these little universal investment tokens. Once I have taken all 3 of these investment tokens, let me zoom in. Once I've taken all 3 of these investment tokens right here, I will unlock this bonus or this bonus. Or if I do these 3, 2 factories and a different investment token, I'll unlock that bonus or that bonus. So your board is full of bonuses. Sometimes you can get the bonuses by only building 2 investments. So you are also trying to decide which of these things am I going to take off the board because I'm trying to get to these different bonuses. And some of them are first come, first serve, and then they're gone. Like getting these ones off the board. There's, I recall correctly, 10 of each of these, and once somebody's taken them, you can't get them. So maybe you want to clear these out and get one of those bonus investments really quick. Or maybe you want to build your headquarters, so you try to clear these out really quick because your headquarters can break ties when it comes to, did I mention, folks, there is an area control element for this game too. As you are laying more and more of your investments in in South Korea. At the end of the round, or twice throughout the game, we're going to tally up who made the most investments in each area. And having the headquarters could be the tiebreaker, and you'd be surprised how often the tiebreakers come around. But whoever comes out on top is the one to score 20 influence with that region. Whoever comes in last gets 5 influence with that region. Plus whoever comes in first gets bonus flags that you can unlock other bonuses. Folks, I feel like I'd have to spend a half an hour explaining all the permutations of this game. I'm just getting started here. But between the really fresh worker placement plus the idea of how you're going to unlock all your bonuses on your own board, this game is rich and deep and complex and is very much the work of the men who brought us Panamax, Nuno and Paulo. Asian Tigers, A Story of Prosperity is phenomenal. And people who love their work, you have to seek this out. It's everything you would hope it would be. Now, all that said, you might be asking, well, hey, you remember how much I loved Madeira, right? And some other games. So why does it come in at number 13 of the month for me? 2 things. One is this is a very sandboxy game. The game does not start players out with any kind of special power or hidden objectives or anything like that helps give you a direction. Everybody gets one good. That maybe gives you a tiny bit of direction. Oh, because I've got this good, I could sell it when I go to Taiwan and that'll give me a little bit of influence with them. So it gives you a little bit, but not very much direction. Now, for some people, that's awesome. People want a sandbox where, oh no, the only direction is from what I choose to do and what my opponents choose to do. My wife and I, we like a little bit more direction in our game. So the fact that it was a bit sandboxy, plus the fact that you can pull off some real jerk moves. And hey, I worked really hard to make that investment, and then you're going to swoop in and take what I wanted to do. Yeah, sure, you paid a premium for it because you had to pay 3 to get it, that would normally get in the A sector to get into the C sector, but still, you cut me off from what I needed, and now I can't build a factory that was going to give me the last automotive part so I could make my sale, and now what am I going to do? I don't know. You can see I don't have enough capital now to invest in that tiger anymore. So Jen and I found we were cutting each other off. I mean, because in a game like that, where there's so much synergy, I mean, think maybe not quite as aggressive and in your face as a food chain magnate, but still that kind of interdependencies and opportunities to cut each other off is rampant in Asian tigers. So, folks, that means for some people, this is going to be the game of the year. If you love a big, broad, crunchy, very thematically grounded sandbox game that can be a little bit, rough and tumble in the boardroom, you might want to check it out. Now, before I go on to number 12, there's one more thing I wanted to mention, and it has to do with the box art, which the box art looks much nicer than the game itself. But some people are taken aback by the fact that AI art was used for this box cover. Personally, I'm not a fan of that either. In fact, on my channel, I've got a protocol where we do not cover games that use AI art. So, and people who know that, they're wondering, why did I even cover this game in this format? It's because I'm going to put a link down in the show notes. You can go to a thread on Board Game Geek where people were talking about, is this AI art? What happened here? And the artist for the box cover actually got on the thread and talked about it, how he was tricked. He didn't realize that he was using AI art for references. And so there are some mistakes here. And also there's one other big mistake, that this tower that is famously it's from China. It is not from one of the Asian tigers, should not be there as well. So there were some unfortunate mistakes made with the box art. And, for some people, that's enough reason to say, I refuse to buy this game. If that's your choice, I understand. I've made choices like that in the past, but go read the thread and read the post from James Churchill. Put aside the fact that he can sometimes be a very grumpy old man, and he went into very grumpy old man mode in this thread, but still, I thought it was interesting to read that this was actually done by human, unknowingly using AI art as reference material. So, I just wanted to point that out as well for people who take a similar stand to me on AI art. This one's kind of a gray area. Artists were paid. There was never an intention to use AI art and disenfranchise other artists down the road. It was just some human error that happened as a result. So I figured I should mention that as well. But anyway, folks, that's it for number 13 of the month, Asian Tigers. Now, let's move on to number 12 of the month. Oh, let me say this right. Concilium Urbis. Concilium Urbis. Which is just hard to say. I keep wanting to say Council Urbis or Councilia. But anyway, Concilium Urbis. Now, what is it about? We are on kind of like almost a Dune, Arrakis type planet, where all the great factions of the universe come here to build up industry and extract resources. But unlike Dune, where everybody just erupts in war to do that, here all the different factions from around the galaxy have decided to convene the Concilium Urbis, which means in this game we are politicians working with other players to set the laws of this planet, hopefully for our own benefit and not for our opponent's benefit. Now, at its heart, this is really a tile-laying game. Here you can see this is one player about maybe half, 2/3 of the way through the game, and you can see they're building up. They're starting to build some towers over here. They've got some residences. They've got a mining thing, and there's rules for different things. Residences want to be next to the mining areas. Towers want to be next to the statues. So you've got different rules for how these different tiles, once you get them and you build your little grid of your own city on the planet. But what will happen is, over the course of the game, at the end of every round, let's see if I can find a picture, there is going to be a vote. Because at any given time, come on, show me the laws. All right, here's some laws. This is not quite it, but these are the 3 different potential laws that determine how, let's see, I think this one is how the city parks score. And one of these cards will have come out as part of setup. And so parks might score really poorly at only 1 point a park. If you put them correctly, I think parks want to be next. Oh no, this is that's the one for parks are the red things. Is that the towers? I think this is the towers. No, those are the towers. Sorry, folks. I do not remember the towers versus the parks versus the factories. But anyway, so this is one of the types of things. And if you build in the correct way, you might only get 1 point for the stuff you build around it. Or you might get 2 or 3. And when it's set up, these might have been really terrible. But what's going to happen is over the course of the game, at the end of every round, we are going to vote on some laws because new laws get drawn. Everybody knows what's coming up for a vote. And everybody can see that, the vote is going to change these from being only worth 1 point to 3 points. Those votes are coming. They're coming soon. And so everybody, in addition to everything else you're trying to do, we are trying to collect enough influence tokens so that when the vote comes at the end of the round, everybody secretly reveals, boom, how important is it for this vote to pass, or fail, because you can see this person is saying vote, fail. They hit it. People thought, you're going to vote for the pass, but nope. They point towards the fail. They want this law because they can see some other player will benefit for the parks to suddenly be worth 3 points instead of 1 because that player's got a lot of parks and I don't. So I'm going to vote no, no, no. And of course, if you're playing with multiple people around the table, you can get, temporary alliances where 2 players don't want to see that pass. And so they can, tally their votes or, get them together and whatnot. And so that's half the game is every round we're going to be doing these votes, trying to change the laws of this planet to be good for me and not good for my opponents. So that's half of the game. But that's just half of the game. Then there is the drafting. This is, I guess you'd call it a closed draft, I split, you choose. It's a combination of mechanisms. Because what happens is, every round, everybody gets 4 tiles in their hand. And they have to break them into 2 bundles. A bundle of 2 and a bundle of 2. So, these 2 tiles go together and these 2 tiles go together. Then what they do is, they take both of those bundles and hand them to the next player over. That player has to pick one of those bundles to keep and one of the other bundles to come back to me. And meanwhile, my neighbor in the other direction handed me 2 bundles. And so I'm looking, okay, which of these 2 bundles do I want? Well, I'm hoping this other bundle is going to come back because I handed those 2 bundles over because I had to split them up. And I know one of those bundles is coming back. I know I'm going to keep one of these bundles because at the end of it, I'm going to have 4 tiles. One of which I hope, if I set the bundles up, they'll bring them back to me. And I could bribe my opponent to say, I know how much you want more parks. I'm going to put this park over here with this factory so that I can keep the double tower because I'm trying to make a really tall tower. And so I'm hoping, and those towers are worth a lot, so I'm hoping they'll give me that tower bundle back because I gave them something nice, right? I could have split the towers and gotten 1 of each, but I'm hoping I'll get those towers back. And then meanwhile, my other neighbor says, they gave me a tower and a power plant and then a park and a residence. I want those towers. But if I can get that tower plus those other 2 towers, that's going to be amazing. I'm going to have a huge payday. But if I become too good at towers, I still know there's a chance the towers could get voted down later. So I'm going to take a chance, and this is all the mind games that go on in Concilium Urbis when you are working both with and against your opponents, because everybody at some point, when I was playing this, Jen, I played this 3-player game, I was offering, hey, you know what? If you make sure you vote for that so that the power plants are really valuable for me because I care about those a lot, I can see you like them, but I love them. Tell you what, the next time I get a park, I guarantee I will put it in, you tell me what you want it bundled with, and if I can, I will. So you can start doing that kind of stuff. Me, I love that kind of stuff. Not everybody does. A lot of people, and that was definitely, when I played 3-player games, the other 2 people at the table were not interested in wheeling and dealing with me. And so you got to know this going in. This is a really clever game. It's a fun, simple, little tile laying game where you're building a very tiny area. So you're really, really constrained. So you got a lot of pressure. You've got this interesting I split, you choose blind drafting thing, that's going on as well. And then every round, you've got the social game of trying to vote with other players, if other players will join you in those votes. So that is an amazing combination of mechanisms that makes Concilium Urbis unlike anything I've ever played. And me personally, I dug it. But I love negotiation and I love tile laying. Now, as I said, neither Jen nor I are big fans of I Split You Choose. But to be honest, the I Split You Choose in this game is nowhere near as egregious or over the top as it has been in other games we've played. So we found it okay here. But still, I'm putting it lower on the list at number 12 of the month, both because, hey, there are a lot of really amazing games this month because we're coming up towards Essen, of course, but because, one, my wife doesn't like I Split You Choose at all. My wife doesn't like, negotiation at all. And while this can be played solo and as a two-player game as well, of course, if you're playing as a two-player game, there goes any chance to negotiate. It's going to just be much more black and white, zero-sum, who's got the votes, who doesn't, kind of a thing. And so my favorite thing about the game goes away. So, and it becomes just a fun little, tile-laying game with an interesting I Split You Choose and a voting thing, not dissimilar from, say, Lancaster or something like that. So it's still fun. But honestly, I think this game is going to be better the more people you have. It can go up to 6 players. And that's a pretty big deal. It's fast. It's less than an hour. 6-player game. Tight. Tension-filled. Both the tile laying and the drafting and the voting. So, it's an interesting combination of stuff that isn't going to work for everybody, but you and your friends. Some people out here, this is going to be a Game of the Year candidate because it's such an interesting combination of mechanisms you've never seen together before. For me, it was great. For my wife, it was like, I don't know. And so, I'm kind of splitting the difference because I take her into account when I rate things, which is why Concilium Urbis comes in at number 12. But man, if I was still in the video game industry playing with some of my old coworkers over lunch, this would be the perfect lunch game for us. Back, as a break from wheeling and dealing over sheep and lumber in Catan. Anyway, though, let's move on then to number 11 of the month, Nature. Now, I did a sponsored preview for this, and so you've already heard what I have to say about the game and my final thoughts, but let me go on ahead and sum it up here really quick. I think this is, what did I say? This was like the zenith or the apex of the evolutionary path that the card game series Evolution has been going on over a decade now. It is, it's taken the gameplay from the original Evolution or the spin-offs that have come out over the years and taking it in entirely new directions. The core gameplay is still here where it's a multi-use card game where you have a handful of cards and you play them either to increase the size of your species or the population of your species or to ensure there's more food so your species doesn't die, or you play them to add traits to your species as they evolve to respond to the changing environment, or more to the point, the evolution of your opponent. Oh, did my opponent go carnivore and wants to start eating my species? Well, my species just evolved horns, so now if they want to eat me, they're going to get gored and they're going to take more damage than me. And so, the evolutionary arms battles continue. This has been around, like I said, for over a decade. This is the latest iteration of it, and I think it's the best because of the modular approach, where you can get so much replayability with this game now. The core game comes with 5 modules, and you will get such a different feel depending on whether you combine, say, flight and tropics, or dinosaurs and tundra, or flight and dinosaurs and tundra. You can combine 1, 2, or 3, or all 5 if you want to, modules, and you will get such a radically different experience from game to game as you explore all the way these different things intermesh. And so I find that to be really compelling. I love modular designs. Plus, the publisher, North Star Games, is planning on every year for the next decade releasing new modules every year, so the game will continue to evolve. Hence the, in new directions. There's other stuff too. The most important change from the traditional Evolution gameplay series is, one thing your multi-use cards can't do is be sacrificed to create a new species from scratch. Instead, every round, everybody gets a new species. So that's a big change because it means you get much more attached to your species. Whereas before, sometimes I'll make a species just so my other species can eat them. Here, it's not, you have to work and plan much harder. Also, another thing, this is the most friendly version the game's ever been, because if somebody does eat your stuff, you don't lose any progress other than some victory points, because when somebody eats away your traits, you reclaim those trait cards. You can use them in the next turn. Somebody eats your population, you can reclaim them so your next new species will become bigger than before. And so a turn where you might get wiped out by your opponents means next round you're going to come in with a new species that's a behemoth that is going to run the place. And so it's a really smart design that still feels true to the idea of the game demonstrating evolutionary principles. It's really, really great. Now, for me and Jen, it's still too cutthroat. I'm still hoping someday for a co-op mode. Maybe one of those modules down the road will turn it into a co-op game. But if you're looking for a species each species game, and maybe the best iteration we've ever seen in over a decade of this game evolving, you might want to check out Nature. Okay, then let's move on to number 10 of the month, Black Forest. Now, this is a sequel to Uwe Rosenberg's Glass Road. Glass Road is one of my favorite Uwe Rosenberg designs of all time. I love the double wheel, and I loved the card following system, where depending on what cards your opponent plays, you try to anticipate what they're going to do so you can play smart and piggyback off their actions, or stay away from them so you can do more actions that you yourself do alone. It's always been a brilliant design. I love Glass Road. Like I said, one of my favorites. But there's a lot of people out there that love the wheel, the resource wheels. Kind of Uwe Rosenberg, he might as well have a patent on them. He's the only designer to ever do them, and he invented them. But everybody loves the resource wheels, but a lot of people did not like the mind games of the following system of Glass Road, which is why then those players should be very excited about Black Forest, because Black Forest keeps the resource wheels pretty much the same, makes some nice tweaks and improvements to them, but it replaces the card play following system with a brilliant worker placement system, where you have one worker who, on your turn, can move around from place to place inside of a village, or you can spend provisions to move them from village to village. And wherever they land, like this blue one here, you get to activate 2 different actions. And over the course of the game, some of the actions let you move these things around. So if you have a different combo you want to do, I want this to combo with that card. Well, there are things you can do to move this card over here, and then you move over there and you get to do the super combo you want to do. And this is awesome. I love this. Honestly, I think for most people will actually like this more than Glass Road. And I admit, I loved this worker placement system. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. So why does it come in at number 10? Why am I even not keeping this game but getting rid of it? Because for the 2-player mode, they have implemented a system for tightening up the board to replicate a higher player count that introduces a needlessly aggressive take that element, where there will be times, usually in a given game, like 4 or 5 opportunities that I will have over the course of a game that's going to last for 2 hours, where, I've got to move this neutral player someplace else to keep the board tight. Where am I going to put it? I need to figure out, where do you want to go? What action do you want to do? What combo of actions do you want to do? Because if I do that, if I move it there, I cut it off from you, or at the very least, I make you have to pay taxes to do what you want to do. And it's just horrible. It's awful. It made me angry to see it implemented this way. Because it's only as a 2-player game that this nasty, ruthless, cutthroat edition. You play it solo, it's not there. You play it as a 3 or 4-player game, it's not there. But no, they decide, no, let's add just a needless, cutthroat element to 2-player, and I vehemently hate it. And it ruined the game for both me and Jen, because every time we got to that point, we're like, right, oh crap, I've got to move the neutral player now. Could you just tell me what will hurt you the most so I don't have to spend the next 5 minutes figuring it out? Could you just do that for me? And, because we don't want to waste it, we don't want to play inefficiently. So, of course, it's very important that we play smart about where to deploy that thing. And again, we'll only ever play as a 2-player game, and the 2-player game is nasty for no good reason. Oh, it just makes me angry thinking about it, so I'm going to stop thinking about it, and I'm going to move on. I talked about this quite a bit more. I had some suggestions for alternate ways it could have been. There's a dozen different ways they could have done this that would have tightened the board up without creating this kind of... But that's not what the designers wanted to do, and so they ruined it for me and Jen. But that's okay, because I'll always have Glass Road, which is still my third highest ranked Uwe Rosenberg game of all time. And Black Forest, sadly, it's going to go to the Dice Tower West Convention Library because it's just too mean for me and Jen. But if you don't mind that kind of thing, or if you're going to play at higher or lower player counts than 2, then it's one of the best games of the year, quite frankly. It literally is. But for me, it's number 10 of the month, Black Forest. Okay, let's go on to number 9. Number 9 is Babylon. This is a new tile laying game that is freaking gorgeous. When I got into board gaming, whatever it was now, 12, 13 years ago, it was unthinkable that we might have games that look this cool. But this is a tile laying game where we are building higher and higher and higher, multiple levels to build the ultimate, Garden of Babylon. Let's see here. In fact, actually, I think in this run-through, which was an exclusive for backers of my show, the monthly Rahdo Relax, where Jen and I, you can see there's Jen and me playing. If I skip to the end, I think you can get a look at what our finals look like. Did I show them? All right, let's see. So, yeah, this is what you build over the course of the game. It is so awesome. There's like 3-4 layers high with all these different columns and bridges and fountains and statues and all kinds of stuff. It is it is so fun and compelling to play this game because this is what you're going to create. And the higher you can build, the more points you're going to get. The more variety, the more points you're going to get. But the actual puzzly nature of playing this game is, this is deceptively crunchy. I thought this was going to be a really simple, lightweight gateway game, but it is not. What happens is every turn, the first thing you're going to do is you are going to grab, you're going to go digging. Here we are midway through the game. There are still a few topsoil tiles. Those are clay. Underneath it are the granite. And then down at the bottom is the basalt tiles, and the ones at the top are the weakest, the ones at the bottom are the best. So you might want to think, the basalt ones are the best because they let you build every type of decorations, bridges and fountains and statues and I forget what the fourth thing is, but there's a fourth type. Staircases from one level to another. The staircases are tough to pull off, but they're very satisfying when you do. So the deeper you dig, the more flexibility you have for different decorations you can throw onto, and that's where the majority of your points are going to come from. But the problem is, the lighter you dig, on the more surface, the more columns you get, because you can see I just grabbed a tile that gave me 5 or 6 columns, because say I grab this column right here, if it is at the top level, you look at every edge of it, if it's at the highest level on all edges, that's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. But say if I grabbed for this one because I really wanted that combination of stuff, it's only going to give me 1, 2 because it's surrounded by 2 higher levels. It's in the medium level, but it's still higher than a low level, and so it'll give me 1 for that, and maybe it'll give me 1 if it matches my preferred color type. So that one might only give me 2, but it gives me the combination of things I want. This one over here would give me 1, 2, maybe 3. But now that one's been taken off, this one will give you 1. This one will give you 4. I'm saying this a little bit wrong, but as more and more of these get grabbed, you want to grab the ones that give you the most columns because you need those columns to create the foundation to build higher and higher. Like you can see Jen trying to figure out where is she going to build this so she can create a bridge, spanning 2 areas or whatever it might be. But you want to dig deeper because those lower tiles give you more flexibility that much quicker. And so it's a tough choice. Plus, every round, a new tile comes out that creates a new rule for everybody that round. Like everybody gets an extra tile, or when everybody grabs a tile, if there's a blank space on it, you can say that's whatever you want it to be, so it makes the higher level ones more valuable all of a sudden. It's fascinating. It's satisfying. I want to say it's fast, but it's not. As a 2-player game, you've got to play, I think, 18 turns, and there's a lot of thought that goes into how best to build. And the tricky thing is, the more you build, the tougher it is to squeeze stuff in because you're in this tight area. Look how complex this thing I've made is. 3 levels of bridges and fountains and all, and I'm trying to squeeze things in to get another level on top there. But it's worth it because, again, the end results, here we are, Jen, because at the end result, you score everything based on what you can see from right overhead. So if you've covered things up, they don't score you anymore. So you've got to try and keep things exposed so you can score them all at the end of the game, but then that's what you get. It's a lot of fun. I liked it quite a bit. It is kind of abstract and whatnot, and it can be a little bit fiddly to, I almost felt, there were times when I felt like I need some tweezers from Operation to try to squeeze this column in here to get it. And it can be kind of a pain if you're a Butterfingers and you've got a big complex thing here and you accidentally bump and oh crap, it all fell down. I need to rebuild this. How is it? Where was the statue on this one? It's neat. It's a lot of fun. I really dug it. Jen liked it. I think my only complaint about it is it's a little bit too long. It gets longer with more players. Or I should say, if you're playing as a 4-player game, there are fewer rounds. So you're not going to build up quite as much stuff. As a 2-player game, like I said, it got fiddly. Because as 2 players, you get to basically build 4 players worth of stuff. Or maybe not quite that much on your table. So that knocks it down a little bit for me because I kind of felt like, man, I feel like this garden should have been done like 5 rounds ago. But nope, we're continuing to go because as a 2-player game, you literally play more rounds to dig up all the stuff. But still, this game is going to be very popular. And for some people, hey, playing as a 2-player game means I get to build more. For some people, that's a benefit. Like terraform, I've always had a problem with terraforming Mars. There's a 2-player game. 2 players have to do the work of 4 players to terraform. So it feels like terraforming Mars goes on too long. For me, that's the only issue I have with Babylon, which is otherwise, just look at it. Don't you want to play it? Don't you want to build that? I have to admit, looking at it, I kind of want to play it again. Maybe I should have ranked it a little bit higher, but I'm going to stay with it. Number 9 of the month, the beautiful, beautiful Babylon. All right. Now, let's move on to number 8, Stevens, a new design from Rolla and Costa, one of the most quirky, offbeat design duos there are out there. I'm really a fan of what they do. And this is a very sharp game about running glass factories in Portugal. After the massive events of the games portrayed in Lisboa, we're now rebuilding the country by rebuilding the glass industry here. And my video for this is going to go up in a couple days, so you'll be able to see the run through for this pretty soon. But in a nutshell, this is a very, very elegant, kind of like old school game, kind of like a classic Knitia game, because on your turn, you're going to do one of 2 things. You are either going to build up, you're going to draft a card that represents a different, artisan, and put one of your little special power tokens on it to indicate, oh, that's my artisan, and I've got that special power. And you put it in one of the 6 different glass factories. Here we are, early in the game, and we're only working on the 2 main factories. A little bit later in the game, you can start to see, oh, we're putting different artisans in different factories as well. So you're either going to put a worker with your disc on it and some special power in one of those 6 factories, or instead you're going to run one of those 6 factories by grabbing a cube out of it. Like if I grab one of these green cubes, I'll run this factory. And here, Jen's the blue player, I'm the yellow player. If I grab one of these green cubes, which I might need to fulfill a contract later on down the line, that means I'm letting, on my turn, Jen do 2 actions and I'll only do 1. Whereas if I take this last blue one and run this factory over here, I'll get to do 3 actions and Jen will get to do 2. That's what really makes this game interesting. It is an engine building game where players are, building a communal engine. In most engine building games, I'm building my little engine on my board, you're building yours over there, and every once in a while I get to run my engine. It's really cool and satisfying. You get to run your engines every once in a while. Here, players are building up, and plus, when Jen built this artisan here, I jumped on and became her apprentice. So if somebody runs this engine by grabbing a cube from that factory, Jen gets 2 action and I get 1. Jen had to make the investment to get the artisan there. I get it for free, but Jen gets points because I'm her apprentice. The interconnectedness between players as we build 6 separate engines where we're both trying to get in on the ground floor and then deciding, well, who's going to be the one to run it so that we all get some benefit is really fascinating. And then there's a bunch of other really cool stuff for, making investments that will generate the cubes that mean we can actually run the engines, or getting contracts which give us ways to score points. There's a bunch of extra stuff too. But the main trick of this game is building communal engines, and I love that a lot. And honestly, based solely on the raw gameplay here and the super elegance, either put a new worker out to build an engine up or run one of the existing engines. Repeat. One of those 2 things until the game is over. This would have rated much higher. I have one problem with it, which I will again talk about in the final thoughts when the video goes up in a couple days. It is a very long game with no fixed end. I wish this game came with a system that says you have 15 rounds to do the best you can. or 16 or maybe 20. But this is one of those games where the game can keep going because what I just described, do one thing or the other, build the engines or run the engines, is so fun and so compelling. Players can get kind of wrapped up in that loop and just keep doing it. Oh, I'm going to build some more stuff and then I'm going to run that engine to get some more stuff so I can build up this engine so I can run that engine so I can get some more stuff to build this engine. So you're just spending all this time in this loop building and running engines and never actually using them for what they're for. Finishing projects and scoring points. And that can make the game take way too long. And it requires a certain amount of diligence, discipline from the players to say, right, I got to remember this is a race. Stop doing the fun part, the building and running of engines, and go do the other thing, do the race. And that's really at odds. So I wish the game had some kind of built-in timer. So everybody knows, crap, I've only got 5 rounds left. Do I have time to build that engine up? No, I better run it now. Because as it is, the game can just linger and go too long. And I've seen this with other games too. Like some people have this problem with Maracaibo as an example, where some people just want to keep doing lots of, never taking big turns and pushing the engine forward. That can happen with this game too. And that's my one complaint. And that's what keeps this game out of the top 5 of this month. But even still, I've talked about some really great games so far, so I'm saying Stevens is a really great game. I just wish it had a timer. Just that, and it would be one of the best games of the month for me and Jen, because I love that old school elegance. Well done, Rolla and Costa. Just one trick you needed to add. IMO. Anyway, and again, folks, my video for this will go up soon, so you'll be able to see it in action. Alrighty, that was number 8 of the month, Stevens. Now, let's move on to number 7, Daitoshi. Very excited about this because this is from probably my third favorite designer at the moment, Danny Garcia. 4th, 3rd, somewhere up there. In my top 5 favorite designers of all time, Danny Garcia, because of his amazing track record he's had ever since he came out a couple of years ago. Arboreum, or was it Arborea, Barcelona, Windmill Valley, another game which I'm about to talk about in a few minutes, and Daitoshi. Daitoshi is his 4th game I have played, and I'll be honest, it's my least favorite so far of them, but that doesn't mean it isn't still great. I've already put my run-through up. I've talked through my issues, which is to say I love this rondel game. There's 2 things bolted together. There is the central city in this forest that is a rondel where on my turn I could choose to work the rondel, move 1 or 2 steps or farther, and usually trigger a big cascade of actions, depending on where I land and what resources I have and how I deploy myself on the rondel. So that's half the game. I love rondels. This rondel is fantastic. The other half of the game is my own board, where over time, one of the actions I do on the rondel is get more inventions, and I throw them onto my own personal board, because my turn can be, hey, forget about the city. I'm going to run my 3 separate independent engines I've got on my player board to start generating lots of resources and stuff that I need to go back to the city and do more rondel actions. So it is very satisfying to build up potentially 3 engines that each one of these engines could produce. What's the maximum? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. At maximum, if I completely fill up one of these engines, it could be producing 10 things for me. Plus another nice thing that I love, whenever somebody says, hey, this turn I'm not going to do the rondel, I'm going to do production, everybody gets to do production. I love games where when it's not my turn, I'm waiting for my turn, I'm going to have to do I don't want to waste time doing production. I need to go to the rondel. Somebody else did production. Yay! So I get to do a weaker version of production, and then I don't have to waste my time doing production. I love that. I love follow systems in games. So, and it's great here. But that's also the crux of my problem with the game here too, which is I want some system to trigger communal actions more often. If you're only going to play this as a 2-player game, it's not going to be that often that you get a free production because your opponent tries to do production. There's only one other player. If you're playing a 4-player game, there's potentially every round 3 other players that might do production. Chances are somebody's going to do production every round. So we're going to be getting stuff a lot more. And also, not for nothing, there's going to be somebody every round who's probably going to expand the city and create more worker placement slots. Or there's somebody every round who's going to electrify a section of the city to make the rondel more powerful. Or there's going to be somebody every round who does production. So just in general, the higher the player count, the more stuff is going to be happening, and the world is going to evolve and give you more opportunities faster. As a 2-player game, it takes a while to get going because there's only 2 people, so the city doesn't build as fast. The production doesn't run as often. And so what is still there is great, and I very much enjoyed it, and Jen enjoyed it too. But I found myself wishing that there was some kind of automated system that would just replicate a third player and every once in a while just trigger additional actions so that the game would speed up, so that the 2-player game would feel more like the 3 or the 4-player game. So that's the only thing that keeps... And this is not something I've really felt was necessary in Danny's previous games, but here I really felt it. So that knocks it down a couple of pegs and comes in at number 7 of the month, Daitoshi. And if you want to see it in action... Folks, there is a link for everything I'm talking about today down in the show notes. You can go learn a little bit more and see the game in action. But that was Daitoshi. Now, let's move on to number 6 of the month, Men-Nefer. Or Men-Nefer, if you prefer. That is the ancient Egyptian... at the time, according to the... I love the thematic setting for this. This is in ancient Egypt, the capital. What we more commonly know of as Memphis in ancient Egypt, because that's what the Greek name was, but the original Egyptian name was Men-Nefer. And at the time, it was the largest city in the world, apparently, which is very cool and evocative. But forget about theme. This is an ancient Egyptian. Hey, we're doing ancient Egyptian stuff, building pyramids, burying sarcophagi after preparing mummies and doing parchment scrolls and all the stuff and fishing on the Nile, all the stuff you expect, right? All the big hits are here. But first of all, let me say, folks, this is the best game I played this month. This is probably one of the 5 best games I have played this year in 2024. And yet, it comes in at number 6 on the month because of one thing, which I'll say what I like and then I'll say what I don't like and what really drug it down for me. This is a worker placement game with a very, very cool twist on worker placement. Each player has 3 workers, or apprentices they're called. As part of setup, each apprentice gets assigned to it a random tile that shows a couple of actions they do. So when I pick one of those apprentices, I'm going to do one of those pairs of actions on them. Then I take that apprentice and program what it's going to do later in the round. By doing worker placement. And depending on where I go, it might be expensive because, the board tightens up worker placement style. Then, on a later turn, I could either activate that apprentice a second time to do whatever I had programmed it to do, or I can grab a new tile to replace the old action tile because eventually that worker is going to come back and it's going to have a new action that it could potentially do on a future turn. Remember, the game starts with 3 of them randomly selected. Let me see if I could. Do I ever zoom in here so you can see them a little bit better in the run through? There we go. Right. Oh, but no, that's right. There we go. So like this apprentice, get my big hand out of the way, please. YouTube, play the video, or just don't. Just buffer. All right, there we go. All right. So I have played 2 of my apprentices. I have not played this apprentice yet. When I play this apprentice, it's going to it's going to make 2 progress on pyramids, and it's going to let me carve a, whatchamacallit. And then I'm going to have to put it up on the board and prepare that apprentice to do something else. So you can see these other 2 spaces where I've already deployed those apprentices. I'm waiting. One of the things I can do is my turn can be to grab one of these tiles, and the more I pay for it, the more I get to do some kind of bonus action. They get progressively more powerful the more I pay. But then I'm going to take one of these tiles and program what my worker is going to do in the next round. So this is a worker placement action programming game where each of my 3 workers is going to do 6 actions over the course of the game. But it's all about me programming way ahead of time what I want my worker to do later. Right, I'm going to do something now and then program it to do something way, way later. So this game is all about, very fast, responsive tactical decisions. If somebody moves out of my way, I better activate that, apprentice now so I don't have to pay the food because suddenly the space is free. Somebody else might grab it. But I'm not ready to activate that apprentice. I was going to reprogram this other apprentice, but no, I better take advantage of that now. So you're tactically responding all the time, but then you are also throughout this game doing long-term planning. How am I going to, when I eventually get this apprentice back in the next round, what is it going to do? I have to decide now based on what this third apprentice hasn't even done yet. This game is phenomenal. And by the way, it should be because it's from, Jermaine Milan, the designer of Bitoku. Jermaine has really made a name for himself over the last few years. Although Bitoku, I think most people agree, is his big debut title. Or maybe it's not his first, but it was his first one that really put him on the map, and that's still everybody's favorite. I'm telling you right now, folks, Men-Nefer is his best design to date. And it's the best game I played this month. It's one of the best games I played this year. So why isn't it my number one? Why isn't it my game of the month? For everything I just said that I love about this game, there's one thing I hate. It is way too long. You are going to have 3 apprentices. Each apprentice is going to do a pre-programmed action, a post-programmed action. You're going to have to program them. So you are basically going to do 27 actions over the course of this game. And an average action generally nets like 2 or 3 or 4 things. So let's say an average action is going to end up making 3 things happen as part of some kind of big Gone Shown Clever-esque combo chain. So by the end of this game, you will have done 50 or 60 or 70 actual individual actions. And for me and Jen, that means this game is going to take over 2.5, maybe 3 hours to play. And it's too long. You play through three eras. If this game had been 2 eras and we're only going to do 18 actions, which these days, 18 actions is a nice number of actions for a game that you want to get done in 90 minutes. It's kind of standard, somewhere between 15 and 20 actions. This game says, nope, we're going to make you sit in that chair for a long time. And for me and Jen, it is too long. All that said, any other game, this would have been at the top of my list because it's too long. But the gameplay here is so good, I split the difference and put it in the middle. My run-through for it is going to be coming in a couple of days, so you'll be able to see it in action soon. I actually played it with Jen. She loves it so much. But anyway, folks, I'm gonna split the difference, put it right there in the middle. My 6th best game of the month. The best, if it had just been a little shorter, is Men-Nefer. All right, now, let's move on to number 5 of the month, Neko Syndicate. Another game from Danny Garcia, one of my favorite designers of all time. And this is a game for him that is a quick, fast, wait little filler game. In fact, this game is so fast playing that the intro video from Publisher Combo Games, their video is only 1.5 minutes long because you can sum the game up that fast. So that is why I haven't done a run through for it. So that's why I'm showing their video and I'm playing it at 0.25% speed, because otherwise it zips through so quick. But it just gives me something on the screen so I can explain what it is. What is Neko Syndicate? Well, it is a world kind of like an Asian Tokyo type thing where the Yakuza runs the city and we are mob bosses trying to build, as you can see right there, a hierarchy of all our lieutenants in our Yakuza. Look, here we are hiring 2 more lieutenants and putting them down at the bottom of our hierarchy pyramid. Now, what does that mean? Well, every round what we're going to do is we're going to start as the mob boss up at the top of our big pyramid that gets bigger and more elaborate over the course of the game. And we're going to move down and activate one of our 2 lieutenants on each card over and over again. And then move down to another layer and another layer. So this is a branching path engine building game where over the course of the game, you build this big pyramid and then you decide, oh, am I going to go down this way and then activate that one and then move that one over there and then that one? And so every route, it's so satisfying. The more of your lieutenants you hire, and there we are. That was all the gameplay. So I got to rewind again. Alrighty, I'm just keep it on screen. So it's such a short video because it's so simple. I love this. This is phenomenal. It's fast. It's like I said, 30 minutes. I would say that's fair. Very quick playing game. And it's all simultaneous action as well. So it goes even faster. But there's one thing I don't like about it. You might think there's 2, because you might think that my wife would not like the mafia element, but here's the thing. The mafia in this world are anthropomorphized cats, so they're adorable, and the crime that they engage in is not, racketeering or theft or, extortion. It's making sushi. Apparently sushi is outlawed in this city for some reason, and so it's kind of like Prohibition era. Oh, we're just making sushi and then trying to move the sushi around to different restaurants, because this the pyramid is not only our organization chart that is our engine that we're building, it's also the map of the city. That if we have somebody way down there in the bottom left corner generate a particular type of sushi, because there's different types of sushi just like in the real world and different ways it can be prepared, we produce it down there. Now we've got to get it transported to this other restaurant on the other side of town. So a lot of the actions we get to activate are pick up and deliver. So this game is a very, very cool build a branching path engine to drive pick up and deliver. And I love the engine building, but I'm only so-so about the pick up and deliver. Pick up and deliver is not, Jensen, my favorite. And yet, we found this is one of those rare pick up and deliver games we enjoy. Coming in at number 5 this month is huge, considering how good this month was. So, and then plus on top of that, it's adorable with anthropomorphized cats. Some of them do have guns, which is unfortunate. Jen would still have preferred just, us being bureaucrats or anything other than criminals. But again, the criminal syndicate is just making sushi and getting it to the people. As you can see in the art there. It's really sharp, and it shows, once again, Danny Garcia is a brilliant designer, and it also is nice that it's Danny Garcia showing us a different side of himself. Because what has he done up till now? Arboria and Windmill Valley and Barcelona and... I'm forgetting one. Daitoshi. These are all big, heavy, complex, long Euros. It's great to see him knocking it out of the park in the best way possible with his little half-hour-long simultaneous play, engine-building, pick-up and deliver game, Neko Syndicate. It has a lot to recommend it. And again, for a pick-up and deliver game to rank this high for me and Jen, that is saying something. Number 5, Neko Syndicate. All right. Let's move on to number 4 of the month, Above and Below, Haunted. And now Above and Below is, for a lot of people, their favorite game of all time. It came out a decade ago, and in fact, Above and Below Haunted is, I believe, coming out in time for its 10th anniversary. And by the way, I should say, this is a sponsored preview I did for it, and you'll see my run-through for it in October when the game goes live on crowdfunding. But anyway, this is still Above and Below. And I should say, first thing people are going to want to know is, right, so it's an expansion? No. Oops, I need to rewind a little bit. It is a standalone spin-off. Think, hey, you've got Ticket to Ride, and then separate from Ticket to Ride is Ticket to Ride Europe. You've got Pandemic, and then separate from Pandemic is Pandemic Rising Tide. So it is the same core game as the original Above and Below, but with new extra gameplay bolted on top. That's where the Haunted comes in. And it's great. I have to admit, no surprise that designer-artist Ryan Lockett, after a decade of making, this was the game that really put him on the map. It really blew up a decade ago. And this was revolutionary at the time. This introduced the industry to the idea of, hey, you can have a Euro that has storytelling elements to it too, because it has a storybook and you go on adventures and all that. And nowadays, that is so common. You see so many games doing it, but this is where it got its start. And to this day, it's still everybody's favorite, so many people's favorite game. And I should say, like Ticket to Ride, some people, if you love Ticket to Ride, you're going to love Ticket to Ride Europe, and it's worth owning both because they give you different feelings. That is the same thing for here, because what this introduces is a few new things. First of all, this makes some nice tweaks and adjustments that are such a huge improvement, but the nice thing is they can all retroactively apply. You can apply the new tweaks and changes to the rules to the original Above and Below, like how harvesting and money getting, those were two separate actions in the original Above and Below. Now they've been combined into one action. That makes the game so much better and faster. There used to be 2 different potions, one for healing people and one for waking them up. Now those have been combined into one potion that will do either thing. That just makes the game faster and smoother and simpler. And again, you could retroactively apply these rules to the original game. So what's new here? Well, the fact that when you recruit new people, they have to come to your village through a haunted bog. And that means they end up bringing ghosts. And ghosts start haunting your village, which is a new idea that did not exist in the original. Because those ghosts, if you have a haunted village every round, your village's reputation is going to fall. And if you remember, your reputation was a big deal in the original game. Your reputation can fall or climb higher than ever before. It's a much bigger element of the game. So you've now got to divide your time between all the stuff you used to do, building buildings, recruiting new people, harvesting goods to do all that other stuff, and most importantly, going on storybook adventures and rolling dice. You've got to do all that, plus now you've also got to split your time between exorcising the demons and getting the ghosts out of town so they don't drag you down. unless you build a building that makes your it turns it into a tourist attraction and everybody wants to come see the ghosts, so there's ways you can play with stuff. There's a few other things. One other big thing, probably even bigger than the ghosts, is this idea of a new thing you can get, little boats. They function like your workers in that once you use them they get exhausted, next round they come back and you can use them again, but they don't do any of the core actions. Instead they can supplement. If you're on an adventure and you roll the dice and they don't go your way, you can exhaust a boat to turn any result into a 6. Above and Below fans know what I'm talking about. That's a big deal. Or you can just exhaust a boat anytime you want to get a coin because you just need one more coin to build this building or whatever. Boats are a huge game changer. You could even retroactively apply them to the original, I believe. But if you love Above and Below, you are going to love this. It's not an expansion, it is a standalone game, but it just means, hey, you'll have 2 Above and Belows. And sometimes you'll want the Above and Below, the original one, or you'll want the new one because they have very different feels. Now, I'll talk about that when I get my run-through up coming soon. But for now, let me just say, number 4 of the month, which I did a sponsor preview for, was Above and Below Haunted. Now, let's move on to number 3 of the month, Knitting Circle. Now, this is from Flat Out Games, who are so on fire these days. Everything Flat Out Games does is amazing. I've not been disappointed by anything. And probably my favorite Flat Out Games game to date is Calico, which sits comfortably in my top 50 games of all time. This is effectively a spiritual sequel to Calico from a different designer, but oh my gosh, does it capture Calico vibes. This game is all about drafting skeins of yarn so that we can knit sweaters and scarves and socks and hats and such. And over the course of the game, at any given time, you can have 2 patterns you're trying to fulfill. And every round, you're going to do a little, I love rondelles, and so you've got this little rondelle that you move your little kittens around, just like Calico. There's cats everywhere in this game, and draft the yarn you want to grab. And then each round, once everybody has drafted 4 pieces of yarn, simultaneously, we can then decide, right, how are we going to deploy that yarn on the patterns? Because, folks, this is multi-use yarn. You can put yarn on the pattern to finish that pair of socks or that scarf or whatever you're trying to make. You can discard the yarn to start a second project because you can be working on 2 projects at once. So you might grab a purple yarn specifically because you want to do that to be able to grab socks because you need to discard a purple to grab a purple sock pattern. Or, here's the other thing, you could discard a yarn to flip another yarn because every yarn you grab, when you draft it, it's either going to come knit or purl. Those are the 2 main knitting patterns. You knit purl, or knit twice, purl once, right? Knit, purl, knit, purl, or whatever. That's in this game. So sometimes when you grab the tiles like this one I've got here, that's set for knit. These 2 are set for purl. And sometimes, I need that dark blue, but I need it to be purl because that's the next space I want. I want a dark blue purl for the next step. So what can I do? Well, I can discard one of these other ones, toss it out of the game to flip it so it can be what it is. So this is about drafting multi-use tiles and then laying those tiles out to complete projects and score points and trigger bonuses like, getting extra wild tiles or grabby paws, all kinds of fun stuff. Plus, every time you play, there's going to be 4 different objectives. Everybody's racing to complete. Very Calico-ish. And again, I love rondelles. So this game, it's freaking fantastic. And wait till you see my run-through. Jen joined me for this run-through, and Amy and Maggie are going to join for the run-through as well. This is going to be one of the coolest run-throughs that have ever been on the channel for a very, very cool, Flat Out has done it again. Oh, one more thing I should say. What's brilliant about this? Not only is it spiritually a sequel to Calico because it's set in the same world, but now instead of quilting with all the cats around, we're knitting with all the cats around, but it's also an expansion for Calico because you'll be able to take the components of this game and introduce them into Calico as a new game-changing expansion with new ways you can play objectives and stuff like that. And I love it too, because I love Calico so much. And I also love number 3 of the month, which remember, folks, I did do a sponsored preview for, is Knitting Circle. Oh, nice. All right. Let's move on to Number 2 of the month, Emberleaf. Now, this is the latest game from Frank West, the designer publisher of Isle of Cats, which is another game in my top 50 games of all time. So I ask in this run-through, is Emberleaf a worthy successor to Isle of Cats? The answer, yes. Now, I don't have to belabor it. You can go watch my run-through, which was a sponsored run-through I did because it's crowdfunding right now. But this is a brilliant engine-building game because you have a handful of cards that represent the denizens of the forest that are part of your clan who will do things for you. And what we're trying to do is move around to the different clearings of the forest, build different buildings, or make promises to collect objective cards, or fight the big scary things that are terrorizing the critters of the forest and all that. Standard adventure-y type, Euro-y adventure-y type stuff. But the way we do it is every turn we're going to play a card to our little grid of areas, which can grow and give you more options where to play over time. And then you activate that card and that's it. And then on your next turn, you're probably going to play another card and activate that card. That's it. But on your turn, you're either going to play a card, do what it says, harvest resources, build stuff, whatever, or instead, over time, you can see I've played 4 cards over here. I could play another card, or instead, my turn could be to slide. And what that means is, of all the cards I've played, I slide them to the left. Some of them come off the board, which means they come back in my hand, and most of them means, hey, when I slide them, I don't activate their original ability. When I play them, I activate a different ability when I slid them. So what does that mean? Every time I play a card out to my board, I am building an engine that I will get to run later. But it's an engine that won't stick around. It's an engine that will slowly tear itself apart so I can get my cards back into my hand. This is a brilliant concept. This is a brilliant way to do engine building games, which is one of my favorite things. The game is blowing up on crowdfunding. It's been a huge hit, and it's no surprise to me because everybody loves Isle of Cats, and Frank West has proven he is not a one-trick kitty or one-trick pony, because this game is super smooth, super elegant, super fun. This was my wife. I'm not, all right. My wife loved it a lot too, but I shouldn't be spoiling her Gen Jog video. But my wife, she loved it a lot as well. If I could be, I'd be playing it right now. It's the second best game I played this month. Oh, and also not for nothing, it's gorgeous. It's got so much charm and character to it. Everything about this game is great. Watch my run through and final thoughts to find out more about number 2 of the month, Emberleaf. And now, we come to the end, folks. Number 1 game of the month, Phoenix New Horizon, which I have not done a run through for, so I'm actually using this demo from the publisher Pero Local Games. And this is a wonderful worker placement game with, again, a really interesting and novel take on worker placement, which is actually what they're demonstrating right now. In this game, it's a post-apocalypse. Hey, nuclear war was generations ago. Humanity's coming out from the bunkers and we're starting to rebuild. You've seen this storyline before. It actually, with a little bit of tweaking, this literally could be Fallout themed, because it's a different look, but it is still kind of very cartoony and retro vibe, kind of Falloutish. I almost kind of feel like, we're making Fallout a Euro game, but then we didn't get the license or something, so we'll just make it our own Fallout adjacent universe. But regardless, nothing here to there. That's the setting. It's a nice setting. It's an enjoyable setting. It's got really great presentation. But let's actually talk about the gameplay. Each player has 3 workers. At the beginning of the game, they start out here in this central rest area. And on my turn, I'm either going to send one of my workers over here to one of these worker placement spots. And let me go back. One of these worker placement spots, one of these 3 if they haven't been gobbled up, or one of these 3. And these are letting me harvest resources to be able to rebuild the world, put out power plants, which will then let me build residences or laboratories or farms, or upgrade my technology with a technology tree, or get special, objective tiles that I'll be trying to pursue for the rest of the game. All kinds of stuff. Dude, I don't need to see you. I need to see the game. Let's slow it down so we stay there a little bit longer. Okay, so here's the trick. So I send my worker over here, right? I do whatever action I'm going to do, and then it comes back around to me. And hey, sooner or later, these lower ones, the ones on the bottom are the weakest actions, but they're also the real essential ones. That's where most of the build actions are. But you can see there's a 2nd, 3rd, and 4th level of actions as well. On my next turn, if I've earned some fuel, maybe my first turn earned me some fuel, which is like one of the most important resources you've got. I could spend fuel to take my 2nd worker, and instead of doing one of these actions to the left, I could follow this track up here and turn them into a level 2 worker. Or if I have a lot of fuel, I could spend enough fuel to move them all the way up here to become a level 3 worker. Then that means they've got access to these 2 actions up here that are super powerful. But you can see there's already 2 workers up there. And so am I going to be able to get to to them before they get gobbled up? Or am I going to move up from there to a level 4 action, which lets me get access to these really cool super in-game bonus objective powers up at the top? But anyway, once I've done that, these workers that are on the second level over here, they now live on the second level. When at the end of a round, after all the workers are done, they go back to their rest area, either on the first, second, or third level, and then they continue to have access to those things. So once you've upgraded your workers, you've said goodbye to some of the low level but really important actions to give yourself access to other actions. Sometimes that's not good enough. Sometimes you have to say, you know what, bring them back down because I need to get access to the lower things. I've leveled them up too much. And so this is worker placement combined with, I guess, a flow chart, basically, because you've got this flow chart that they can follow. Oh, there's other things too, like if these two actions on the ground floor were already occupied by other players and I say, hey, I want to go to one of them, these being occupied creates a shortcut that goes directly to these. These two on the second level create a shortcut that goes directly to the third level. So you can take shortcuts and not have to burn entire turns to work your way up the ranks. You can see, you can just look at this. There are so many intricate connections to jump from one area to another to reprogram what your workers are capable of doing and fundamentally change the core actions. It's really satisfying. Okay, let's stop. Let's look at the board a little bit. Here's the board. You know, there's different sectors. You're trying to build the power plants to be able to build the buildings, to get all kinds of... If one player builds a power plant, that means another player could come along and build the building, and that means the player who built the power plant will get a nice little bonus. Sometimes I'll build a power plant where I know you want, because I don't care about building that building. I just want free bonuses from other people building those buildings. You get that kind of stuff. If you build in adjacent areas, you get the adjacency bonus. There's one other thing. Where's the tech tree? You're going to show the tech tree, buddy? There it is. There's the tech tree. You've got your workers. You can deploy more workers over here and start working your way up all these different branching tech trees. And the first to reach these areas give you different bonuses. If you get all the way to the top of these, you unlock other in-game scoring bonuses and stuff. So you've got a lot of activities to spread your attention, but all of it is driven by let's look at the player board too. You get all these great upgrades. As you build more and more stuff, you unlock other bonuses from your main board, but you got to decide, right, hey, bigger power plants cost more energy to build, but they give me bigger paydays and all of that stuff. And I've got my own little personal side. Get your hand out of the way. Get your hand out of the way, please. Get your hand out of the way. Oh, he will never do it. Reach in from the other side of the board, man. All right, you'll have to trust me. Underneath his big hand, you have your own little private tech boards in addition to the big tech tree board on the main board. This is where you can unlock more workers to do more stuff on your own board. So you've got there you finally moved it. There you got to see it for a little bit. So you've got your own very complex board to manage. You've got this awesome worker placement system with reprogramming your workers via this flow chart thing. And then you've got a lot of really fun main board things, getting area majority in the different sections, unlocking bonuses, standing on the shoulders of what other people have done, but giving them benefits by using their resources, tech tree stuff, objectives aplenty. This game is phenomenal. Chances are it's in my top 10 games of the year. I'm just going to call it right now. Both Jen and I loved it to pieces. The best game I played this month, in a month with a lot of really great games. It's my game of the month, Phoenix New Dawn. And oh my goodness. Phew. That's it, folks. An hour and a half to talk about 14 games. Sorry, but I've asked you in the past, and you say no, don't go quick. Go deep, Rahdo, go deep. Because you folks know, if you don't want to hear about a game, you can just skip, right? There's chapters down in the show notes below, in addition to links for everything, including links for Primal the Awakening, which is still open for pre-orders. And like I said, folks, it is selling out. And that's the last you're going to hear from me because I have now covered everything that is available. But I will say one final time, thanks to all of you for watching and liking and commenting and subscribing so that I'll do a little bit better. Come on, folks, if you enjoyed this video, do me a solid. Throw a comment down there. You know how this works. Help me master the YouTube algorithm. But in addition to thanks to all of you folks for helping me, thanks to Primal for sponsoring the show. And like I said, folks, they're taking pre-orders now. Links down in the show notes for one of the biggest, bestest boss builders I've ever played. And that is the roundup. Thanks for watching, everybody. Talk to you later. So long. Bye. Bye.